In recovery, yes, recovery is very serious, but the thing about it, we don't take ourselves so serious. When we start taking ourselves serious, we're going to be in trouble. We take the program serious and we take ourselves with a grain of salt. Don't take yourself so serious. So back in the early days of AA, a bunch of addicts, a bunch of alcoholics, newly sober alcoholics. They are the smartest bunch of people in the world. They think they know everything, and each one knows the answer. If y'all have ever been around a bunch of drunks, I love it. I love it. That's my favorite people to be around. So, a lot of alcoholics, most alcoholics, can get into that grandiose thinking. So they were thinking about, the early AAs were thinking about how they could save the world. I mean, they could put this program everywhere, the AA program. They could put it in schools, they could put it in churches, they could and then they decided, well, I know what we can do. We can build this treatment center. I mean, fancy, and had everything you can imagine in this treatment center. And then they got to fighting over what all they were going to put in it and who, and thank God there was somebody that had a little bit of sobriety, and that was Bill. Bill stepped in and said, you are taking this to the extreme. And so this is where, we do take the program serious, but we don't take ourselves serious. So out of that scenario came rule number 62, don't take yourself so serious. Do you see this little thing right here? I'll put it up close. Can you see it? And it says rule 62. I had a client many years ago that made these, and he would take them and give them to newcomers. Rule 62, and that's found on page 132 in the fourth edition of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Don't take yourself so serious. Yes, we need to take recovery. Well, there's my friend Chuck Allred. I wish I could see you. I bet you're a handsome young man now. I haven't seen you since you were a kid. But anyway, all right, so the thing about recovery is being in the disease. People, when we're under the influence, we can find a lot of things to laugh about. But when there's sobriety, particularly early sobriety, there's not a lot to laugh about. And so it's important that we get around people who want to lighten up a little bit and have fun in recovery. And fun it is very, we have to take having fun very serious. Misty and I just got back from a road trip. We don't know where we went. We don't really know what we did. We did a lot of driving, but we did a lot of laughing. We can find more to laugh about and giggle about than it reminds me. I've always had a really close friend called, a running buddy. I have a lot of friends, but I've always had one running buddy. And Misty's my running buddy. We just have more fun and find something to laugh about in almost every situation. And it reminds me of my first business partner, Carmen. Now, she wasn't always sober. I knew her when she wasn't sober. And when she first sobered up, Pat H., who was, when she passed away, she had over 55 years of sobriety in AA, and Pat knew how to have fun, and we all had fun together, and she was like our whole family spiritual advisor. Pat stayed with us a lot. So here, Carmen had just sobered up. Pat was going up to Norman, Oklahoma to speak. She spoke a lot at different places. And my husband drove us, and we all four, piled in the car, and we're on our way to Norman, Oklahoma. Well, it was back in the days of those CB radios, CB radios. Do y'all remember them? You're telling your age if you do, where you had a handle and everybody had anyway, people got on them and they could talk, and the truckers would talk. Well, Pat, my friend, she was like a stand-up comedian. So we got her on the CB radio talking to truckers. And she got to talking, and Pat, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway, she could talk tongue-tied. And we talked her into getting onto the CB and talking tongue-tied, where she wasn't talking plain. And she just talked to those truckers all the way to Norman. They couldn't understand words she said, but everybody got to laugh at it and all. So we got up to the meeting. It was the building was packed. And we sat on the second row, and the woman that invited Pat, she was very serious. She'd been a director in the movie business, a producer and all. Anyway, she was a businesswoman back when there wasn't very many women in business, but she was serious. Had a lot of sobriety. She had invited Pat up there. So we were sitting there, and they had this woman to get up and read how it works. When she got up and started reading, she had a speech problem, and she talked tongue-tied, like we were having Pat to talk tongue-tied, and we laughed. But Carmen and I got to laughing, and we could not stop laughing. And finally, Pat just pushed Carmen down up under the chair up in front of us. And anyway, we laughed, and we could not stop laughing. And that woman that invited us, she just got so mad at us. Carmen sat down there and went all over herself. Anyway, I could tell you a lot of fun stories connected with AA and Al-Anon Ventures. We used to go to conferences at least once a month. My husband and I did early in his sobriety. Well, it wasn't early. we did it for many, many years. I miss those times. But anyway, fun is essential in recovery. We must have fun in recovery, or why would anyone want to be sober? Why would any of us want to, work the steps and go to meetings and do this and do that if we didn't have fun along the way? It's got to be different than the way we lived in the disease. So it's okay, we do need to take the program serious. We do need to take ourselves serious at times. That it's also times to just lighten up and have a little fun in your life. So the number one thing is fun is healing. It is healing. There is nothing like a good belly laugh where you can just, laugh, and primarily laugh at yourself. Find something to laugh about yourself. And aren't we funny creatures? It doesn't take much for us to find something about ourselves that we could laugh about. And I can be real funny. My mother was like a stand-up comedian, and she had 9 brothers and sisters, and all of them were like stand-up comedians. And they could get together, and they lived a horrific, horrible childhood, but they'd get together and make fun of their childhood, and us kids would just be on the floor laughing at all the shenanigans that they pulled and all. And so it's important to find laughter in fun, because fun is healing. And when a lot of us come into recovery completely disconnected from the fun in us, we are disconnected from laughter. And when the air conditioner man came through a while ago, he's a dear friend. I've known him for years and years. And this is what happens. This is exactly what happens. If we don't change in recovery. Playmates, playpens, and playthings. If we don't find something to lighten up about and to laugh about, we are doomed. We may not drink again. We may stay on a food plan. We may look like we're in recovery, but on the inside, we might be dying. And he was just telling me a few minutes ago that there was a young man that used to be our plumber out here. And he'd been sober for quite a while, but he found no joy in recovery. And so he shot and killed himself. That is the danger of sobriety, because when you take away one behavior, when you take away the drug, alcohol, or you take away abusing food or drugs, or you name it, nicotine, when you've been using a substance for years and you take that away, what's going to be left here is one of the most unhappiest persons in the world, and they're going to hate life, they're going to hate you, and they're going to hate everything, particularly their family. And so this is where the program comes in. When you don't take away one behavior without replacing it with another one, and that's where the fellowship and the reaching out to each other. I was thinking this morning, and I own a treatment center, but sometimes I wish none of us even had a treatment center. In that years ago, over 50, I've been doing this deal, have found recovery in 68, but started the AA, dragging my mother to AA years before that, since I was 13 years old. And so, I don't know what I was going to say about all that, but I'm sure it was very important, and if it was, it'll float back by. So, but anyway, it was really important, and I'm going to think about it in just a minute. But fun is healing. Oh, I know what I was going to say. We would, there wasn't any place to detox people in those early years. You know, if they were really, really bad, really bad about to die, and I will tell you, alcoholism is a drug, but it's a drug that's the most dangerous drug you can pick up. Most people are going, when they detox from hard drugs, they're going to feel bad, they're going to feel awful, but very few ever, any drug addict, very few ever die from detox. Alcoholics can die from detox. It's a dangerous drug to detox from. So we need, places where people could detox. Back in the early days, the only place to detox them was in the hospital. And so my husband was still drinking. God watches over children and animals and fools, and I think we kind of fell in that category. But he was still drinking. But we had this big playroom that we built on the back of our house to work with, for our kids and their friends. It was like another house. It was huge. So I let the AAs bring people out there to detox them. My husband would go back and talk with them, and he would tell them how he was an ex-alcoholic and how he had learned how to drink and all that. But anyway, that was before he ever sobered up. And so a lot of times they would have Al-Anons to come out. The AAs would have some of us Al-Anons to come out because they knew we would do the hard work and they could just, talk with the person they were sobered up. So the AA sent us to the grocery store to get, orange juice, honey, all the things that you use to detox someone. So it was me and another Al-Anon and my friend Pat H. We went to the grocery store and it was real late at night. There wasn't very many people in there. But, some Al-Anons, and I love Al-Anon, it saved my life, but some of us do take life way too serious. But anyway, we were in the midst of one of those Al-Anons that she took everything serious. So we were walking down the aisle in that grocery store, and Pat said something, I don't know what she said, but we got to laughing. And she had on these Mexican shoes that had all those straps. It was made out of leather, and this long skirt. Anyway, she laughed so much that she wet on herself. So she just kind of hunched down on the floor and just wet on herself. And when she would walk, those shoes would go squish, squish, the pee oozing out of them. That woman that was with us did not find that funny at all. But Pat and I got so tickled we could hardly get out of the grocery store. Now, we were doing some serious stuff, detoxing, helping detox an alcoholic. And if we didn't do it right, we could have killed him, but we still found something to laugh about. So, like I said, I get kind of sad sometimes that I don't know that there's as much 12-step work that used to go on. We had to do 12-step work because there wasn't a counselor on every corner or treatment center. You had to do that one-on-one, and that's what happened in the early days of Alcoholics Anonymous. So fun is healing, and when you don't have fun in recovery, what it is you have completely disconnected from joy. Joy is a word, is a feeling that is the enthusiasm of God. And when you have fun, you're going to feel joy. You're going to feel joy to the nth degree in your heart. And if you haven't had a good laugh for a while, you're due one. You need to laugh. Laughter is healing. My friend Annie Lamont, and by the way, my dear daughter Christy Kay is in Costa Rica with Neil and Annie. Neil is Annie's husband. She's down there doing a week's workshop. And I will tell you one thing, one ingredient I know that they're going to do in that week's workshop. They're going to find something to laugh about, because Annie Lamont demands people to have fun and laughter. And so they'll be serious in their, lessons, but they're going to have a lot of fun. So what Annie said, a quote from Annie, is laughter is carbonated holiness. Think about that. Laughter is carbonated holiness. When you drink a carbonated drink and how that, that fizz comes up. I love me a good Diet Coke. I don't know about y'all. I can just taste it now. But that's how holiness is. It's just a feeling all over us. And that's what laughter is the closest thing to spirituality. Laughter is when you're laughing at yourself, not at others, but when we're laughing at ourselves and just having fun. Jesus had fun. It wasn't all just doom and gloom, even though he knew what his journey was here. Okay, so number 2 is fun breaks the pattern. Addiction is repetitive. We do the same thing over and over every day. When you're in the disease, nothing changes. Nothing changes. You get up, you think, I'm not going to drink today. By 9 o'clock, you're drinking it. Or you get up, you think, today's the day I'm going to go on that diet and I'm not going to overeat. And by noon, you're in the cookie jar, whatever. So that repetition is what you are a codependent. And you get up and you think, I'm not going to meddle in anybody's business today. And then you see your husband in there and you just got something to tell him that will make his day better, like you're going to meddle in his business. So that fun breaks that pattern, that addiction pattern, and it breaks the isolation and it breaks the shame. It's really hard to feel a lot of shame when you are with someone that you're finding something to laugh about. Because what fun does and laughter does, it disrupts the pattern. It disrupts that woe is me pattern. And it brings you back to the present moment. Happiness is not lived in the past. when we think of the past, we usually think of doom and gloom, or, I should have, or would have, or could have, all of that. When we get in the past, we're usually into guilt. When we're into the future, we're into fear. And we think when we're into the future, I'm going to do better tomorrow, I am going to do better, I'm going to do better. And recovery is about staying in the moment, this moment right here, this moment, and lightening up, finding something. We humans, we are pretty funny people. You watch yourself sometime. I'm a people watcher. We just got back from Misty and I went up to right there at D.C. in Virginia to work with this beloved group of wrestlers, and they were ages 8 to 25. I have never been in a group of people that treated me with any more love, dignity, and respect. Their coach, Carolyn Weston, is teaching them much more than about how to wrestle. She has sent kids to the Olympics. She's had a gold medal winner. But I'll tell you, what I experienced those 2 days up there is those kids are all gold medal winners. I was sitting there, Misty and I were sitting there, we just gotten there the second day, and we were sitting in the stands watching them practice, which is amazing. I couldn't do one thing that they were doing. But she called for a break. And those kids and adults, coaches, all of them lined up, came by and shook our hand, shook my hand. I did have to wonder, I wonder what they've all been touching or whatever. But anyway, there's about 200 people all together, 180, 90, all the kids, the coaches and all. They came by, she took time for them to shake our hands. And they were laughing and high-fiving people, and so she's teaching them much more than about wrestling. She was teaching them about life and how to have fun and mix it in together. And so fun disrupts all of that shame pattern. It disrupts the isolation, and it gets us back into the present. And remember, we're allowed to feel good. It's okay for you to feel good. I remember the day we buried my husband. Our friend Ashley Judd was here, and the kids were here. We had a house full that came after the funeral. We had a late lunch, and then we were all visiting. We were out in the yard. In fact, I can look out here and see it. And there's a swing out there, and I sat out in that swing. And one by one, those people, some of them were one by one, they came and sat in my lap, and I rocked every one of those people that was here. I was looking at the pictures the other day, they just popped up. And then Ashley got us up, and this is the day that we buried my husband. And Ashley got us up, and we all played running charades outside. We were laughing, we were having more fun. That's what my husband Ariel would have liked. He would have wanted that. He was a man of laughter. He was a man of jokes. And I was his favorite one to tell jokes to, because I never remembered the punchline, and he could tell me the same joke 25 times, and I laughed every time. We made a good pair, and I miss him every day. And so you're allowed to feel good. We used the substance to change the way we felt. And the longer you stayed in it, the worse you felt. It quit working. If a substance was still working for any of us, you wouldn't be on this call. If you're an addict of any sort, you wouldn't be here. You'd be out practicing your substance and thinking you were feeling happy and feeling good. But what it does, it takes us away from life, and it takes the fun out of life. When we're drinking and having a good time, it feels in the moment that it's fun, but it's really not. So fun is about, it builds connection. And that's what I was saying about, what we did the day of my husband's funeral. We had all spent 2 weeks here mourning his death. I know you can't mourn something until you lose it, but we were in preparation for mourning. I mourned that he couldn't speak and that he could, so it had been, the whole little town of Buffalo Gap was sad. It was just like it had a black cloud over it. And so he was at a different place. He was having a lot more fun than we were. He was up there with all of his AA buddies, him and Bill and Bob. They were all up there having a good time. And so it wasn't disrespectful for us to have fun on the day that we buried him. And so how you build connections is you think of the most fun times that you've had in your life. Think about the most fun times that you've had in your life. And I want to ask you, how many of you were by yourself? Fun is with other people. Fun because, you can have fun, but who are you going to share it with? Who are you going to laugh with? And you can have fun doing things that you wouldn't even think. So, Pat, my friend Pat, I miss her. Oh, how I miss Pat. So, Pat couldn't stand the wind blowing. She was from up north where we had sandstorms. I mean, we had the wind here. They had lots of wind. She couldn't stand the wind. She always wanted to kill herself when the wind was blowing, And so one Saturday afternoon, she came to the house and she was depressed and and she was our spiritual leader. She was the one that set the pattern for us. But anyway, we were just good friends. And there was the West Texas Fair going on. And I told Pat, I said, you need to get out of this funk. You need to do something that's a little fun. I said, come on, let's go out to the fair. Well, she didn't want to go to the fair, but I made her. So we got out to the fair and on the runway there. And they were setting up for a concert. And so Pat was single, and she was cute. She had long hair, and she was just, she was always looking for a boyfriend and or girlfriend, either one. And she was just cute and funny. So they were setting up the lights on the stage. And there was a guy that kept doing like this and pointing, and Pat did like this, like she thought he was pointing at her, and she'd wave back and he'd point and she'd laugh and she'd say, look. And of course, he was half her age, but she really thought that he was flirting with her. Well, there was by that time, a crowd of people had gathered around and we were all having fun at Pat's expense. We all could see the full picture of her thinking that man was flirting with her, that young man, and he was motioning the man behind us to straighten that light behind. And she got to feeling better. She, was no longer wanting to kill herself. And we all, even those people that didn't know her, we all got so tickled. And I finally told her, I said, turn around. And she turned around and saw the guy behind us, and then saw the guy straightening the lights. And she slapped me real hard on the arm. She said, and you let me act a fool of myself. And that's what we have to do sometimes. We have to act like a fool sometimes and be willing to, to just laugh at ourselves, because we are pretty funny people. So laughter and fun builds connection. I mean, she'd gathered up a whole audience there just by flirting with the guy setting up the lights. And she gave everybody a good laugh. So how do you share laughter? How do you share fun with people? One of the things is dancing. I don't do much dancing anymore, but RL and I, particularly around holidays, but really on weekends sometimes, if I was in there cooking, he'd put some And I don't know if our kids ever knew all this. I don't know, it didn't matter. But he'd put music on and we would dance and cook and dance, and he'd swing me around. And, and so dancing is fun, and we'd have the best time. And I remember the last Christmas that before the Alzheimer's took him, we danced. We danced all around the kitchen while I was preparing Christmas lunch. And so in swimming, we have a pool. And my greatest joy is laying in my porch swing out on my screened-in porch and listening to the laughter of the kids, they're all grown, in the swimming pool when they're playing volleyball. Now, I would no more get in that pool because they are serious, and these are big, strong athletes. I'd be taking my life in my own hands if I went in there. But I love to hear them laughing, and they're laughing, and they take volleyball serious. My grandson and Cam and my grandson usually win every match. I don't know a time that anyone's ever won, and they didn't, and it's just two of them, but boy, and now somebody's kind of taken Cam's place, and her name is Maddie, and that's his new wife, so that's his volleyball partner now, and boy, she is an athlete. Swimming is fun, just doing anything spontaneous, like on a trip, like we didn't do it this time, but when Pat and I would travel, she would have that music blared up. She'd stop on the side of the road, say, get out, and I'd get out, and we'd dance on the side of the road. She'd leave the car door open. So Misty and I have done that, we'd just stop the car, have the radio go, and get out there and dance, and just have fun, make a fool out of ourselves. Do something spontaneous. Go on a spontaneous little road trip. My kids have surprised me with road trips, just day trips. And I love it because it's just a way to, when you're in a car with someone, if there's anger, boy, you can cut it with the energy with the knife. But when we have these little road trips, if you get in that car, everybody's telling jokes or telling stories, and there's laughter, It is not where we go or what we do. It's being together, and the most fun is in the vehicle while we're going and coming from that little trip, So look for healthy, honest ways to have fun. And then what keeps people from having fun in recovery, let me to tell you, it's guilt. Because so many, and a lot of times alcoholics they think they're having fun when they're drinking, they're really not, but they think they are. So when they sober up, a lot of times they think that they have to be so serious in recovery, and they'll say things like, well, I have wasted years of my time, I've got to get serious. And that's one of the worst things that they could do. Yes, we do have to take life serious, but we don't take ourselves serious. Remember Rule 62, don't take yourself so serious. And so guilt is, and I felt guilty for having fun. My mother was the one who had fun. And if I wasn't working around the house, she would find me something to do, and she'd say things, get up and get the lead out. You need to go do so and so and so and so. And while one of her, drinking cronies would be there, and they'd be telling jokes and laughing, So I had a bad feeling about having fun and about laughter, because I always connected it with alcoholism or drinking, and that it never included me. And so I learned a lot in Al-Anon about how to have fun, and it is sometimes harder for those of us, and I do identify myself as an alcoholic. I know that but I do know that I am a dyed-in-the-wool compulsive overeater, and that is such a serious disease that it almost killed me. But today, I don't have to let it kill me. I can treat it and have fun along the way. Another thing that keeps alcoholics, particularly early in sobriety, from having fun is fear. Fear that they'll just lose control and go back to the way they used to be. And fun doesn't mean you have to be reckless or do reckless things. One of the things we say in recovery, regardless of what the addiction is, we have to be willing to change playmates, playpens, and playthings. If those people don't change along with us and want to want a recovery path, you best stay away from it. It doesn't mean that you can't, speak to them and be cordial to them, but I would say find someone else. I know what you're doing, turning that upside down. I thought maybe you were having a little fun there, but it's just important to to have fun, and it doesn't have to be reckless fun. It has to be something that you can have a belly laugh over, and it's like I said, in early recovery, you got to find a different way to have fun. The ways that we thought was fun before, we would start out when my husband was drinking really bad. Like, he was really big. We belonged to this like country club thing, and the only reason that he belonged to it is so he could, look like the big shot oil person and go and and really that's why we had it, where he could entertain customers and people who, to entertain mainly customers, and so. He always took me with him because, not always, but when we had customers, he would take me with him. So before we left the house, what he would say, now, I'm going to order 2 drinks. And if I try to order that 3rd drink, you just kind of tap me on the leg. And I would fall for it every single solitary time. So here we'd get all dolled up. I'd be overweight, but I'd get me a new dress for this event or whatever. And I thought I was looking as cute as I could look, as big as I was. But I'd get excited about the night out. So we would get there, and they would all, order drinks and be drinking. And by that time he got ready to order that 3rd drink, I'd be tapping him on his leg, and I'd tap him on his leg all night. And he'd say, "Would you quit kicking me?" And when we would leave the house, I was his sweetheart. I was his best girl. He just loved me, loved me, loved me. By the end of the night, he wanted to take the waitress home and leave me there at the bar. That's what happens when people get drunk. And so anyway, those wasn't the most pleasant outings that we would have. Another thing, number 3, a thing that keeps people from having fun is perfectionism. They think having fun has got to be perfect. You've got to figure out what to do and how to do it and where to go and where to do it. I'll tell you, we were like in Savannah, and I love Savannah. I worked down there on the Ruby show quite a few years ago, and I was anxious to go back and be there because I love the city, and Misty never had been. So we took this trolley car around the city, and then around the city, and then we decided to take a ghost tour. Now, when Christy and I were there, we took a ghost tour, and it was a real ghost tour, and it was a real scary house. And the guide that took us through wanted to hire me for the sound person because I screamed in all the right places. I screamed all the way through. It was the scariest thing I've ever experienced. Well, this was not this ghost tour. It was cheesy. It was not fun, and I had a hard time getting up and out of that van. And so toward the last thing that we did, I didn't get out. I just stayed there with bus driver, and I watch people go by. If you want to have fun, watch people go up and down the street in Savannah or New Orleans, or when they're having, a party time and they're drinking. I'll tell you, I had so much fun watching them trying to have fun, and they couldn't even put one foot in front of them because it was late. It was like 11:30, and I thought, and there was a lot of these bachelorette parties. There's about 3 of them, and they looked horrible. They were all drunk. They would take those high heel shoes off. They were fussing among themselves. They were, doing this. I mean, it was horrible in every one of those groups. And I got to thinking, when they left that hotel that night, they didn't plan to have a bad time. They planned to have a good time. They didn't plan to get mad and threaten not to show up at the wedding the next day. They didn't plan any of that. That's what the drug alcohol does. And by the end of that, I just saw the tail end of their bachelorette parties, and there was 3 different groups, and it was just sad. So anyway, so if you're going to have fun, have clean fun, and let your inner child have fun. Go inside and ask the kid what the kid would like to do. And, what I like to do, what the kid inside of me likes to do, is laugh with someone. And Misty, I can laugh with my girls in camp, but Misty and I, we laugh about nothing. I don't know what we laugh about, but we do a lot of giggling. And so, number 4 is what does fun look like in recovery? Well, what fun looks like in recovery is like what I said earlier. It's dancing in the kitchen. It's being silly with your kids. It's about gardening, doing things you enjoy doing. I don't mean yard work. I mean gardening. Things, if you're a gardener, give yourself time to do that. It's about, summertime's here. It's going by quickly. Fireflies. It's about chasing the fireflies. Get out and chase fireflies. Watch one. Ooh, here they go. Do simple things to bring on laughter. And number 5 is reclaim your right to joy. It is okay in recovery to have fun. Recovery, yes, absolutely, recovery has got to be serious. But like I said earlier, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous gives us permission to enjoy life. And I think it's interesting, this passage is in the chapter to the family. See, the family of an addict, they haven't had fun in a long time. It's not fun to live in addiction. It's not fun for the kids. It's not fun for the spouse. It's not fun for it seems like it's fun for the alcoholic at the time, but when they wake up the next morning, it's not fun. It's not fun. And so I think it was just interesting that this statement that I'm getting ready, and I've already told you, but it's in page 139 in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It says, go laugh until you cry. Go laugh until you cry. Give yourselves permission. Say yes to life. Don't just survive. But it says in the big book about don't take yourself so serious. Don't take yourself so serious. Take your sobriety, take your recovery serious. If you don't take your overeating, your undereating, your binging, your purging, your codependency is a killer. And if you want to die from a stress-related illness, you may not be an addict, but you're an addict from being addicted to people, places, and things, and being addicted to having your own way or teaching people to do what you want them to do. And it takes a lot of energy to run the world. Codependency is the hardest to treat. It takes the longest to recover from, because codependents do not see that they have a problem. Everyone else has the problem, not the codependent. They're trying to fix it all. I mean, can't you see how much effort I'm putting in to trying to fix you, and you don't even appreciate it? So remember that addictions are killers. They literally will kill us. And recovery is about doing the opposite. But if you can just stop drinking or stop eating, that just gets you to the starting gate. Recovery is about from the neck up. It is from, from the thinking, it's from the processing. And by the way, we're going to be talking next week about emotional sobriety. And that's what I'm talking a little bit about right now. You can be dry till hell freezes over. You can be dry and not be drinking. But you show me a person that's not drinking, that's not treating the disease of alcoholism, I'll show you a miserable person. They're miserable, and they're miserable to be around. And there's no fun, no one's having fun around them. So, what I would like to say is go laugh until you cry. Say yes to life, and don't just survive. Say yes to life. And here's some affirmations for you. I am allowed to have fun. Say that. I had to say that to myself because I did not have fun and I did not know how to have fun. And God put people in my life like the Pats and the Carmens and the Misties and the list goes on. I have a friend, Mary Lou, that go back a long way. She taught me how to have fun. God's put people in my life, playmates that I could have fun with. So I'm allowed to feel joy. Don't ever think that you can't feel joy, even in the midst of problems. I don't need permission to have fun. I am the permission. And what you do it for free and for fun. If you're going to do something for another person, do it for free and for fun and not with an expectation. That's what I have. What do y'all do for fun? What do you do for fun? So the next few minutes, I'd like to give me some hints. What do y'all do for fun?